everybody. Welcome to the Cancer Education Series, brought to you by Mercy One Cancer Center and Above and Beyond Cancer. And this program is brought to you with support from the Iowa Cancer Consortium. You guys are in for a treat tonight, as am I, because I have two of my favorite people. We have with us Lauren and Vernon Delpass. And Lauren grew up in Oklahoma. Vernon grew up in Texas. They both worked for the YMCAs of America and met during their work with the Y. And 20 years ago, they moved to Des Moines, Iowa, and have raised two kids that are in their 20s. They have a beautiful little 4-month-old grandbaby and just kind of living life to the fullest, healthy and engaged in just a great lifestyle. And then boom, out of the blue, going in for a screening mammogram, Lauren and Vernon's life changed in a moment. So welcome, Lauren and Vernon. And we're going to talk about Lauren's journey. But as all of you know, no one goes on this journey alone. So we want to explore how breast cancer diagnosis changed their lives, how it has affected them and their family, and kind of how they've come through it. So Lauren and Vernon, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having us. It's an honor.
So
good to be here.
It's great to have you here. It's a great day to be alive.
It is.
And, I happen to have known Vernon and Lauren before the cancer diagnosis and was honored to be on the team. So maybe set the stage for us a little bit, going in for the screening mammogram. Any thoughts going in? You'd had mammograms before, and then how the information first came to you that everything wasn't just totally fine.
Sure. It was 2020, that 2020 of COVID, and I knew that lots of people had been skipping screening tests because they didn't want to go to the doctor. And I knew that wasn't the right choice for me. So I went ahead and scheduled my mammogram. It's not always in October. It's usually around that time period, but it just happened that they had openings pretty quickly when I called. So I got in. Never had an abnormal mammogram. Very healthy, lead a healthy lifestyle. We eat healthy, we exercise, we try to do all the right things. Normally I walk out of my mammogram and you wait for the letter to come in the mail 2 days later. And then I would show it to Vernon and say, you get to keep them for another year. So the following day, I had just finished a yoga class and opened my health portal because I had received a message. And that's how I found out that I needed to come in for more imaging.
Oh, wow. So that's a new thing that people are finding out via a health portal that there's something wrong.
Yeah. And
so your thought when you read that?
Well, I said a bad word out loud.
Uh-huh.
And everybody around me, my yoga people who I love, all just said, oh, it's normal. I get called back every time. It's not going to be a big deal. You'll be fine. And so on the way home, I called immediately and said, what does this mean? And if I need more imaging, I want to get in and get it done. And they apologized for me finding out through the portal. And a week later, went back for more imaging. They said we need to do an ultrasound, so did a little ultrasound. The ultrasound tech looked for 15 minutes and didn't find anything. And so all along the journey, everyone's saying, you're fine, I've had more imaging. And then they said, we're going to do a biopsy just to make sure. Went through that procedure. Even then, everyone is saying 80% of these are benign. That was on a Tuesday. I had my biopsy done, and they said you'll probably have results within 48 hours. By Thursday afternoon at 3:00, I was climbing the walls. I called my internist's office, and you have to leave a message, obviously. And then when the phone rang at 4:30 and I answered the phone and it was my doctor on the phone and not his nurse, I knew that the news was not good. And he said, you always know when you get me on the phone. And I was like, okay. And he said, it's a bad news, excellent news situation. He said, it is cancer. It's very small. We caught it early. It's very slow growing, and you'll be able to take care of it and move on with your life.
Mm-hmm.
I was in shock.
Mm-hmm.
I was in shock. Vernon wasn't home, but I called him and he came immediately home. We sat on the couch together and tried to just process what had just happened. And we are blessed enough to know who ended up being my surgeon. And so we got in touch with her immediately, and she said, I will see you tomorrow. And I, got in to see her. And then you're just on this road. All of a sudden you're on this road that you have to be on, that you don't want to be on, and you're just carried along.
Almost on a conveyor belt.
It is because you see your surgeon, and then you have an MRI, and then you go to the medical oncology, and then you come to radiation oncology. And
so let's go back a little bit. So the time, the week between your abnormal mammogram and getting advanced imaging.
Mm-hmm.
So are you the type that like you were already buying a casket, or are you the type that go, oh, this is nothing, and you just put it out of mind and just
no.
Can I answer?
Yeah, yes.
No, I'm not that person.
She does kind of jump to conclusions, and I'm the complete opposite. I'm the eternal optimist. So
Absolutely.
I was more, hey, this is nothing. They've probably made a mistake, I wasn't worried about it at all. And yet, yet it turned out to be something that we needed to be worried about.
And I have to say, to be honest, I did better during that week than I thought I was going to do. I slept, which I didn't think I would be able to do. I prayed a lot. I tried to just let peace from my God take over and get me through that week.
So you made it through. And then I was impressed for a couple of things when your internal medicine doctor called you and provided the news. Number one, the fact that you were shocked. I'm kind of surprised that you remember the words he said in such detail, as opposed like, I don't even remember what he said except I had cancer. A couple of things that you remember. And number two, it sounds like he very intentionally needed to provide the news, but did with a window wide open for hope and optimism.
Absolutely.
So it wasn't.
Yeah. And I told him the day that I learned that I needed to go back for more imaging, our daughter called us that evening, FaceTimed us that evening to tell us that she was pregnant with our first grandchild. And so there was a lot of emotion. There was a lot of positive. There was a lot of fear. And I immediately said, okay, well, I already had a lot to fight for, but whatever happened, I knew I was going to be around for that. And
so when she called to share with you that she was pregnant, did you say anything about what you were?
She knew. Yeah,
she knew you were
I had talked to her because I called her and said, I need you to put me on your prayer list. And then they called me that evening and told us. So when my internist called, I said, now look, I'm going to be a grandmother for the first time. And he said, you'll be around for many years to come to see him grow up. That was very good to hear. But in the back of my mind, I remembered the doctor who did my biopsy saying to me before he left the room, don't worry, 80% of these are benign. So.
Yeah. So that then going through the treatment, so you get 3 new doctors. You get a surgeon, a radiation oncologist, and a medical oncologist. And as we said, you're on this conveyor belt where you have to get the additional imaging, and then surgery, and then a consultation about unique chemotherapy or hormone therapy, radiation therapy, what type of surgery you're going to have, all of that. Was going through that decision making, were you able to clearly think? Was it fairly straightforward? Did you feel like you were facing difficult decisions, or your path through that decision making of exactly what treatment you're going to get? Did you feel that was fairly straightforward?
Yeah, I'm very blessed that I had an excellent team, and I really trusted my team from the outset. I trusted my surgeon. I trusted her opinion of my diagnosis. I trusted you with my care, and I trusted the process. And I am an information is power person. The more information I have, the better I feel about the situation. But I don't go on the internet because I've learned that you can read all the scary things on the internet. So I made myself stay off the internet, and I just sought peace and advice and treatment plans from the people that I trusted.
And Vernon, you were present at all of the meetings with the doctors. And so how would you characterize that process, the discernment process of coming up with, then this is the care plan? Was that fairly straightforward? Was it?
Well, yeah, I think it was straightforward because of the level of trust that we had with our, medical team. And that made it a lot easier than if we wouldn't have known them ahead of time, and but it's still shocking, even though it was clear and we felt confident in it, but it's like, I can't believe this is happening.
And then as the spouse, not the one with cancer, did you feel your role was, and it could be all of these, like to help make sure we have all the facts straight and figure out the data, or was it just to provide unconditional support, a bit of both? Were you intentionally like the listener and responder versus, well, here's what I think we should do after what we've heard?
Well, it was both, but certainly I felt like my most important role was just to provide her with the support, and encouragement, and just to sort of be strong, with that, and be optimistic, and sometimes be humorous, and just kind of keep it light. And, even though I didn't necessarily feel like that inside, I wanted to be like that on the outside, and just, and really support her and just help her work through it.
So cancer journey, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't have your records in front of you, it was lumpectomy and sentinel node procedure, followed by radiation, and followed by anti-estrogen pills.
Yes.
Correct? And so of that journey, and you're still on the journey because the anti-estrogen pills are for 5, 10 or so years. What was maybe the most difficult part of the treatment?
Wow. The surgery was probably the easiest part of the treatment. I overdid it a little bit when I got home and ended up with
And ran 5 miles a day after?
No, I didn't, but we went snowshoeing, and I got in real trouble with my surgeon for that, and then I ended up with a little bit of an infection, but I felt great. So I was like, why can't I go do what I want to do? Radiation, I think, was hard the first couple of times. I came in to get my markers or my tattoos, and I said, can I see the room where it happens? And my technician said, sure. And so she walked me into this giant room where this huge machine is. And I turned around and looked at the door, and the door is like 3 feet thick. And she said, the walls are even thicker. And she said, you'll be in here and we'll be out there. I was like, oh, okay. So make sure you point it in the right place, and, it's all safe. But I remember laying on that table for the first time in there by myself. That was very hard. It was very hard. Even though it only lasts 90 seconds.
Yeah.
It was a long 90 seconds.
How many treatments did you have before you felt at peace lying there on the table? Or did you ever?
Probably about halfway through. So I had 20 treatments, and probably about halfway through, I was like, okay, there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and the side effects were not horrible, and I was ready to just be done.
Mm-hmm. And then you're now on an anti-estrogen pill.
Yeah, that's not fun.
Yeah. So we were talking a little bit before we got started that you might start sweating in the middle of this. That change that happens once you start on that is kind of throws you into menopause like a body slam. And so that's an ongoing side effect that you're experiencing.
Yes, and I'm not sure that I was well prepared for that. I don't know that I necessarily received. I mean, they can tell you what's going to happen, but until you experience it, I don't know that you can actually understand. But I'll be somewhere and be doing this, and people, women my age will say, "Oh, I totally understand," and I don't want to say to them, "No, you really don't," because it's like menopause on steroids.
Mm-hmm.
The hot flashes are worse. The joints hurt. There's a little bit of brain fog. There are other things that you notice that you're like, is this because of the pill that I'm taking? I don't know, but I'm grateful for the medicine because it's doing its job. And it's keeping me cancer free right now, but I wish there was another way.
Vernon, while Lauren was going through the treatment, and let's say through the radiation, because obviously the hormone therapy is ongoing, did you notice any change in her? I mean, did you sense fear, hope, resolve, a little bit of everything? What did you observe?
Well, probably a little bit of all of those, but what it did really for both of us, you're not expecting something like this, right? I mean, it came and it was a surprise, and but it also kind of helps you understand your mortality a little bit, and helps you appreciate every day. It helped us move some future plans forward, that it's like, we better not wait any longer for this. And so it really does kind of change your perspective of life, maybe to appreciate things a little bit more, to appreciate our relationship a little bit more. I know we, going through this, got a little bit closer. Not that we've been far apart ever, but it made us grow closer, together. And as a whole family, including our children, we're constantly calling and checking, and just doing everything they could do to support her. And I remember that, okay, the surgery was done, the radiation was done, several months had gone by, and then all of a sudden we weren't as close as we were going through all this. And I just remember Lauren saying, I don't want to lose that. I don't want to lose what we had. Yeah. Because it really did kind of bring us a little bit closer together, because we kind of had to be.
Yeah, that emotional intensity, and it's like, wow, this is.
We sat on the couch together every night, very close. I had to be touching him, had to be close, because he was my strength, and I had to draw that strength from him all the time. And I often worried about, where was he drawn? I mean, I know his faith is strong, but I worried about, well, he's being strong for me, but who's being strong for him and my kids? I remember when I started treatment, I got pink paper, and we made a paper chain with 30 circles on it or 20 circles on it, so that every day I came home from radiation.
She's big on paper chains, by the way.
We kind of just made a ceremony, just the two of us, every day, about cutting one of them off. And
you mentioned something I just wanted to refer to, is this intensity and the closeness that you had. Like, you've always been close, but this closeness. There's a beautiful book, When Breath Becomes Air, and the one of the couple gets cancer, but before he got cancer, they were having some marital difficulties and almost split up, and then in the cancer journey became intensely close together, and they joked with the other couples that, if you want good marital therapy, just one person gets cancer. That'll bring you closer together than going to see a counselor. Now, obviously a little tongue in cheek, but the point of how the specter that you might lose something makes you appreciate it more.
You sort of refocus what your priorities are,
Mm-hmm.
And your priorities really become your relationship instead of some of these other things.
And in that way, I can almost be grateful for my diagnosis. I can say that because I'm healthy right now, but I'm grateful that it woke us up a little bit to have this sense of urgency a little bit about what we want to do with the rest of our lives and how we want to spend it and our relationship together.
Yeah, as you said, I mean, we all know intellectually we're going to die someday, but as we live day to day to day to day, and all of a sudden we're, 60, it's still like, well, I don't see the end in sight, so why should I change? And a little brush with mortality is like a 2x4 upside the head that says, oh yeah, that's right, we're mortal. We're going to die someday. And that makes today more valuable. That's what I'm hearing you say.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah, appreciate it. So let's now transition into sort of lessons learned. Obviously, having cancer and going through cancer treatment is not just a bowl of cherries, but there are silver linings. There are, we grow through difficult times. I like to say adversity leads to personal growth. I know you have an even more eloquent way of saying that. Let's focus a little bit on what you've learned and how what you have learned is allowing you both, each in individual ways, to perhaps not only live your own life differently, but to help others on their path.
Other than just what we talked about, I want to fully engage in life now. And I'm trying to do that every day. And I want to grow through what I've been through and what I'm going through. I'm learning. I thought that once my treatment was over, that my cancer journey would be over. And my cancer journey will never be over. And that's what I'm learning, because it has changed my life so drastically, but not necessarily in a bad way. I would go, and I still go to my checkups and my doctor's appointments, and I see these other women or other cancer patients who are fighting and fighting hard, and they have to continue to do life. They're working on their laptop while they're waiting for their chemotherapy, or they're, joking with their husband after their 30 millionth blood draw while they're waiting to see the doctor. And, the pink ribbon has always been the symbol for breast cancer awareness. And I was actually driving home from a weekend where I got to babysit my grandson while my daughter was in a wedding. And I was thinking about just the whole idea of growing through what I've been through. And I thought, well, if I need that message, other women need that message too, and other survivors and caregivers, to be reminded that it's not something that you ever finish with, number one, but it's something that you can grow through in all areas of your life, physically, emotionally, spiritually. If you haven't been living a healthy lifestyle, grow through your experience and start to make those changes now. If you haven't, if you need to find a spiritual way to deal with your diagnosis, then reach out to people and find a way to have that kind of help. So that's kind of where I'm going with it. I've got a little website that I don't know what's going to happen with it, but I've given it over and we'll see what happens.
And the phrase you use is grow through
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I spell it funny.
Uh-huh.
It's GROTHRU.
Mm-hmm.
And that was his idea, actually. So grateful to him because we just like one day we were
I
talking
just
about
don't
it.
spell very well.
It's actually true.
But it's really, I mean, cancer can be a teacher.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Is a teacher.
Yeah, and everybody's familiar with the concept post-traumatic stress, where you go through a difficult time and you don't have the support, and you get through that difficult time and you're kind of a basket case and can't even deal with normal stress. The opposite, but probably more common, is what you're describing, post-traumatic growth, where you go through a difficult time with support and you actually grow and learn. And I wouldn't say that cancer necessarily gives you strength, but allows you to find the strength that was already there. And finding that strength already there, that's resilience, and that's what growing through. But the way you phrase it is so beautifully. You grow through.
Post-traumatic growth. I really like that phrase. I think that's good. And when I go to the doctor, when I see people, I don't ever want anybody. I want to, there needs to be, I want to be a place where people can tell me their stories or one of the things that I've learned through this whole thing is I just want to love people better. All people, and whether that's, I saw a woman sitting on a bench outside an elevator one day while I was getting ready to go up for an appointment, and she just looked like she'd had a rough morning. And so I just complimented her necklace, and her eyes just lit up. And that's the thing that I find myself focusing on all the time right now is I just want to love people better. We had your Elevate Festival on Sunday, which was such a great event. And I met Christine, and just this woman who's been on a journey similar to mine. And we shared our stories and we connected. And it's just for that one connection that I made on Sunday, I'm so grateful that I went to the event.
And tell me a bit more about how you're using the wisdom that you've gained from your journey to in a very directed manner, live your life differently. And you've already explained that, and how helping other people is, I'm sure, I mean, I know you well enough to know that you've always been generous to help other people, but how maybe you're focused a little bit differently on your desire to allow the wisdom and growth that you have gained to help others.
It's still a work in progress.
Okay.
I feel like I'm still, I'm not necessarily ready yet, but sometimes the greatest success starts from starting something when you're not really ready to start it. I'm just trying to follow my heart and be obedient to what I'm being led to do. I don't know what's going to happen with it. I want to hear other people's stories. If I can be an emotional support, a physical support to someone else that's going through something similar. I have a lot of friends who have had cancer and been touched by cancer, and there's a lot of people that are on this journey together with us. We have very good friends whose husband is in remission from stage 4 lung cancer from melanoma, and we've been on that journey with them for 3 or 4 years. It's scary to come alongside people who have cancer, but everybody needs somebody to come alongside them to help them through this journey.
And Vernon, we were talking a little bit about your perspective of the wisdom that you have gained as a caregiver, and the support that you can provide other caregivers. Maybe talk a little bit about how, since Lauren's diagnosis, you've become more aware of all the cancer out there and how people are seeking you out, or you're seeking people out to help mentor them, and how that's changed your life since her cancer.
Yeah, well, I work at Valley Church here in West Des Moines, so I'm surrounded by a lot of people. And after her diagnosis, then it just seemed like I kept hearing more and more people being diagnosed with cancer, and maybe it's always been there, but I didn't pay attention to it. But then once, then all of a sudden I started having men come to me that said, "Hey, I understand your wife was diagnosed with cancer. My wife was just diagnosed. And so can we talk about that?" And so I've been able to kind of share, I was sort of a step or two ahead of them, and we feel, again, fortunate because she had we caught it early and it was small. So she had a pretty positive, path that she's on. Some of them was really a little more serious, but it's been great to be able to help them and encourage them, let them know what to expect, let them know how they can support their wife, going through this and all. And it's been, they've really appreciated that, and it's been good for me too, to be able to share that and encourage them as they go on their journey.
Have either of you been involved in any formal counseling or either through a pastor, through a mental health counselor, through?
I'm actually seeing a counselor currently. I started about 2 months ago, I guess. Over the last couple of years, there have been a lot of hits on my life. I take care of my mother. She's in long-term care. 1 month, so I was diagnosed in October. In November, she got COVID. And there was about a 48-hour period there. And of course, I couldn't go see her. And during that time, and we were just waiting for the call. We didn't know that, we figured this was it with her. She's had many, many falls, many strokes. She's just not in good health. And I'm here with her. So I'm, her care is on my shoulders, and which I, I'm honored to be able to do for her. And I think, I had a couple of friends say to me, "It's time for you to go talk to someone." And I don't have a problem with that. There's no stigma to me for that. And so I found a girl who's really good, and we're in the same stage of life, and I see her about once a month. And it's been really good for me.
Yeah.
It's been really good.
Sometimes it's good to have that independent view. I mean, you have unconditional love, but sometimes unconditional love can't always be as.
And your friends are the same way.
Same way, yeah.
Sometimes you just need a professional.
Right? Yeah. Sometimes you just need a professional.
Yeah.
It's been very good. It's been very good. I'm very grateful that I had people, a couple of friends who loved me enough to say, "You need to, it's spilling out, and you need to talk to someone about it."
Yeah, and I would say that being put on anti-estrogen changes one's emotions in a way that kind of change things, and also probably lead to the likelihood that having some counseling may be of benefit. Yeah.
And really the thing we've spoken about least is my cancer. I mean, it's just there, how to navigate through all of the things that were happening at once. And so it's been very good.
One thing that I like to talk about with my patients is joy. And I'm talking about joy that is like this deep-seated meaning of life and purpose, and this overwhelming joy that includes ups and downs and twists and turns. But I do think spending time thinking about, okay, what brings joy to my life is not this hedonistic, it's just another beer on the beach type of thing, but really what does bring deep-seated joy. So one question I'd ask you just to think about a little bit, what brings joy to your life? And do you think that the answer to that question is different post-cancer diagnosis than it was pre-cancer diagnosis?
Mm. Well, I like to, when you talk about joy, joy doesn't always mean happiness.
Correct.
Joy is something deeper.
Mm-hmm.
And joy is sometimes something you have to choose rather than feel. My family has always been what has brought me joy. My grandson brings me joy. Even when things are rough down there and they're not getting sleep, and and I'm able to talk my daughter through that, that brings me great joy to be able to do that and to have that, with her. But I'm a relationship person and I'm a connector. And so relationships bring me joy, and connecting people together to have relationships brings me joy. Yeah.
And what, if anything, are you doing different in your life to bring more joy into your life now?
I'm just trying to be present in every day. There are days that I think before cancer, I wasn't really, there were things that I was doing or things that I was involved in, but I wasn't really present. And I want to be present now in everything that I do. I want to remember things. We're getting ready to build a house on a piece of property that we bought in southern Iowa, and it's an overwhelming amount of decisions and choices that can be very frustrating. But at the same time, I just remind myself to be present and to understand the blessing it is that we have the opportunity to do it. And my glass half full man, it only took 25 years for him to rub off on me, but I think the cancer diagnosis finally got me to the point where I'm more glass half full when I used to be more glass half empty.
Okay. And Vernon, reflect a little bit for you. What brings you joy?
Well, one of the things that I think this has done is kind of sped up our planning process, and helped us kind of refocus, because as you know, I retired from one career about 5.5 years ago, and then kind of restarted, and so I call myself semi-retired, but soon that will come to an end and I will be fully retired. And but I'm not prolonging that now. I mean, through this process, we identified that we want to spend a lot of time out in nature. And Lauren loves to garden, and food garden. She loves eating healthy and growing her own, organic food. And so this weekend, we're actually going to build the garden boxes that she'll do that in, down at our property. And, she just stands there in the middle of it and looks out, and she just weeps, because she just loves being there, and it makes her feel so good. And so seeing her with that kind of joy certainly gives me, an awful lot of joy too. And so for me, it's just been this kind of refocus on let's don't wait any longer. We know we want to do this, and we're going to count our blessings every day, and let's move forward with those plans. Don't put them off anymore.
And some of the things you pointed to are fairly universal. I mean, relationships, family, nature. Oh my gosh, and to recognize I find joy being in nature, and so many people that provides joy, but they create a life that doesn't have much nature in it. And so being aware that being outside in nature, whether it is sunny or windy, or regardless of which of the four seasons brings me joy, can I intentionally live my life putting more of that in there? Or a good physical exertion with sweat. There's pain going through it, but boy, you finish that.
Catching a large bass brings me joy.
There we go. Eating a large bass.
Too.
And how about your kids? Like Owen's only 4 months old, so we'll give him a pass for what he's thinking through this process. But your kids are in their 20s. And how would you say your cancer diagnosis has, number one, if any, changed your relationship with them? But number two, do you see any differences in them having gone through your cancer journey with you as a family?
Now I'm going to get emotional. They pulled in so tight around me, and it was amazing to watch, because as a mom, you're the one who is the supporter and the encourager and the one who gives advice, and
And the one that worries at night.
that worries at night.
Where are they? Are they safe?
We found out at like 4:30 in the afternoon. I got my diagnosis, and our son was at school in Cedar Falls, 2 hours away, and he got in his car and drove home.
Mhm.
And he had to turn around and go back early the next morning, but he came home to be with me that night. He grew up that night in my eyes, and had become a man when he did that. And he was home a lot, as much as he could be during that time. He came home for my surgery. My daughter, of course, was newly pregnant, and I was worried about her emotions, because I didn't want her to be dealing with a mother who had cancer while she was trying to grow a baby. So I worried about that a little bit, and I may have tried to shield her from some of the things that I was feeling. But I quickly told myself that that wasn't going to do her any favors, and me either. And so we have a great relationship anyway. And so we talked often. She and her husband, I know, prayed for me a lot. We saw them whenever we could, as much as we could. And then I tried to just immerse myself in helping her prepare to be a mom, which gave me something really fun and joyful to focus on.
Vernon, what would be your perspective? Anything else to add about what you've seen your daughter, your son go through, and how they have come through the other end?
Well, especially with our son, he stepped up, and she's right about him becoming a man. He's not a hugger, right? I mean, you know what I mean? He is now.
He is now.
And he was. I mean, it just, she's right. He did grow up, and you finally began to see him show some emotion, and it really, they've always been close, but it drew them a lot closer. And so Ashley, our daughter, she's just she's wonderful, and she's always supportive. They talk on the phone almost every single day, and that's great. And she was a tremendous support, and she knew, when she knew that Lauren needed the good news of learning that she was pregnant, because she didn't know when Lauren first called her to tell her that, that she was diagnosed with cancer. And then Ashley knew when she got the news she was pregnant. She called back and she said, put it on speakerphone. And she says, well, I have something I want to share with you. I have some really good news for you. And of course, after the kind of afternoon we had, and so, but she knew that she needed, she needed to bring that good news. So they were there for us. And this is probably as they've been growing up, the first time we've always been there for them, right? This was the first time they needed to be there for us, and they realized that, and they definitely stepped up to the plate.
Yeah.
So we were very, very proud of them.
Yeah.
And continue to be.
Yeah, one of the blessings of this. You mentioned several times praying, and you mentioned the church you belong to. Let's just kind of dig into a little bit the spiritual aspect of your journey, and how in any way it was supported by your faith. In any way was your faith questioned, and how has if in any way has your faith changed, and maybe how those around you who share your faith, or maybe same church, or your pastor, the role that they played in your journey. So that's a whole lot. So the topic is
Faith.
spirituality and faith.
Well, I think everybody who gets a diagnosis of cancer, whether you're Christian or not, or Muslim or anything, says why.
Mhm.
You know, the first thing you want to know is why. I did all the right things, I thought. You know, why? And because I know that the Lord knew that my greatest fear is losing my health and being sick. And it has been for my whole life. So I wanted to know why.
Was it why God have you forsaken me?
It was why. It was just why God. It was just why God. Why? But with his help and with friends who have also been through this with their spouse or going through this, it became there's but God, and then there's but God will get you through it. Because I started out as but God, and I quickly turned that into but God through his strength and his faith, and reminding me and the people around me who are my friends and my family who love me and who would say, we're on your team, we're here, we're praying for you every day. And I would roll over in the morning and make myself say my prayers, give my day to the Lord, and get up and just do the best I could. I knew that fear was normal. I knew that God could handle my anger because I was angry. I knew he could handle it. I knew he could handle my fear. And I knew that I can't really ever say that I became comfortable that whatever the outcome was, I'd be okay with, because that's not necessarily true. But I have to make the choice, even today, every day, to get up and say, this day is yours, Lord, and you have to do with it what you want. Because there is a fear. I don't care what any cancer survivor will say. I mean, I can say I'm cured, but there's a fear of recurrence, and it's real. And it rears its ugly head at least once a day.
Yeah. Let me dig a little bit deeper, and if this gets uncomfortable, then we can go. You said anger. And when I think of anger usually has an object of the anger. When you said you were angry, who or what were you angry at?
Well, I would say I got angry to, not angry at,
Gotcha.
because the anger wasn't because of anything, but it usually was him. Because when I'm scared, it manifests itself as anger. And so I was scared often, and I would bite his head off.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah, I mean, I would.
Yeah.
Plead the fifth.
Okay.
No, you don't have to plead the fifth.
Okay.
I mean, it's.
And you know, and again, I'm the half, full kind of guy. Because for me, it wasn't, oh, God, why did this happen? It was, praise God, we caught it early. It was, praise God, we got an incredible medical team. It was, praise God, the prognosis is good. It was those positive things. And I think in both cases with her and me, we're surrounded by some great prayer warriors that we knew were going to be praying for us, and boy, that sure makes that makes a big, it really does make a big difference, and so, needless to say, I would hate for someone who's going through this that has no faith to try and go through it alone, because it's hard. It's really hard.
And is your faith changed in any way since your journey? Or
I think it's deep into my faith to the extent that I find myself, Scripture says to pray unceasingly, and I find myself not unceasingly, but I find myself you just having a constant conversation with God, and I am seeing more of the blessings. He would have to remind me, we have a great team. You have a good a good prognosis. And so again, that has turned to where I can now, I'm trying really hard to have more gratitude about my life, my journey, my prognosis. My counselor's been very good at giving me little things to, when I take on some guilt. Like, for example, I was telling her that I feel guilty when I can't get to my mom's on the normal days that I go visit her. And she said, you love your mom well. Do you think you're going to love her better if you love her earlier? And she said, I want you to think about that as you go through your week and you're thinking, oh, if I can't get there today. And she said, when you think of that, just smile and say, I love my mom well. I'm not going to love her better just because I love her earlier. And so it's those kinds of things that take what would have been to me I get mad at myself, or I get down on myself, or and I have, I think anyway, you may disagree, a more joyful countenance about me.
Mm-hmm. I have 3 questions that you get to choose which one to answer.
Okay.
So during, from the time of diagnosis until now, what has upset you the most that somebody has said something to you that has been the stupidest thing that upset you the most? What has been the funniest thing that has happened to you since the diagnosis till now? And what show of support or words of wisdom or act of kindness is so noteworthy that you want to mention it today? So something that's super positive that somebody said or did for you, something stupid or bad, and something funny. And you don't have to answer all of those.
Okay. Well,
And you're up next, Vernon.
well, he gets time to think.
Yeah.
I would say the dumb thing, and it's really not dumb, but this whole grow through thing that I'm doing is, it's something that is really scary for me to do, because when you do something like this, you really make yourself vulnerable. You put yourself out there for people to either yay you or put you down. And within 24 hours, I've had great response, but one comment, a put down, and I had to really draw in and think about, am I going to let that one thing mess up all the positive that I've had today? So that's the probably dumb thing, because it is what it is, and just because it's on my heart right now, the noteworthy thing is Christine showing up tonight.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and Christine is here. She's the one I met Sunday.
Right, you met her
festival.
Sunday at the Elevate
the
Festival. You shared each
We
other's
shared our
stories.
story, and for her to walk in tonight and in a show of support is like, that's noteworthy to me.
Yeah, and Christine, before you came, she was telling me how meaningful it was that she had met you and shared the 3 Mile Walk and the Phelps Festival. So, and then you walked in. So, yeah.
And the funny ones, he's always being funny, but probably the really funny ones, I can't say.
Okay, leave that to our imagination. We'll see if Vernon says it, though. So, Vernon, you get to answer one or all 3 of those questions.
Well, I'll say the hot flashes are pretty funny
Okay,
sometimes,
okay.
you know.
No, they're really not. Nope.
Well,
When I'm sticking my head in the freezer or
yeah, she will. She'll open the freezer and put her head in it, you know, and always grabbing an ice thing out of the freezer and putting it on her or whatever like that. So, but anyway, I would say for me, kind of some of the wisdom or maybe a hope that I have is that I don't forget this experience, you know. Again, I hope we don't have to go through it again. I hope there's no reoccurrence, and hope I don't have. I mean, you know, who knows? Tomorrow it could be me. You know, you just never know. But I don't want to forget this experience and be able to use this. I mean, I think things happen for a reason, right? And already, you know, she's been able to encourage other people. I've been able to encourage other people. And I hope that that's been helpful to them. And I think that's part of what God wants is you to, you know, when you have an experience like that, how do you help other people from it? You know, how do you grow and help other people grow and help other people grow through it? I mean, we had people that came alongside us, other cancer survivors, right, that were there before, that walked with us through our journey here. And I hope that we are going to, you know, we don't just walk, okay, this is done and we move on, right, to the next thing. But we remember that every day is precious, you know, and that we use this experience to hopefully better love and just support and encourage other people.
Yeah, I hope this wisdom doesn't wear off with time. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So we're going to end with, you're going to share with us some lyrics of a song. So when I saw you Sunday at the event, you were wearing a t-shirt that happened to have the grow through. And it reminded me of a song. I had attended a workshop, a weekend workshop, Palmer Parker and singer Carrie Newcomer, who wrote this song about, you know, it's there's no way you go around things and over things. You go through things and they change you. And that's the first thing I thought of, and the sentiment is the same. So I shared with you the song, and why don't we end tonight with you just sharing that song with the audience.
Yeah. So when you shared the song and I got in my car and I immediately, you know, listened to it and cried all the way home, because the title of the song is "The Only Through Is In." And I thought of my journey, and tonight I just kind of want to share it because it kind of tells a story of the journey, but I'm thinking more about the people who are going through the journey right now, because the only through is in. Can't get over it, can't go around it, can't get under it. I know because I tried. Checking the walls on every side. And if I could pray or do this any other way, I'd have done it long ago. The only way out is through, but the only way through is in, where the soft soul waits and hearts beat and break, and real wars are waged and won by song. This runaway train and this well-worn brain, more of the same, can't be sustained anymore. So I walked in through that door, and it felt like dying, but it feels like trying. Yet I'm still only halfway there. The only way out is through, but the only way through is in. And where it's hard as stone and close to the bone, and real wars are waged and won. I think that you might be the bravest soul I'll ever meet anywhere, just sitting in that chair. And with shaky hands, I saw you make your stand, and I believe you can. You can. The only way out is through, but the only way through is in, where the soft soul waits and hearts beat and break, and real wars are waged and won.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you for sharing it.
Thank you. So this has been great. Thank you, Vernon. Thank you, Lauren, for sharing your story with everyone. And thank you all for attending this evening. Again, this has been the Cancer Education Series by Mercy Cancer Center and Above and Beyond Cancer. If you would like to share this, this has been recorded and will be a video podcast that you can find at the Mercy One website, or you can find it at the Above and Beyond Cancer YouTube channel to watch it again or share the link with friends. Please come and join us again next week. Thanks so much for being here.